This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 627. Welcome in. It was I don't even know how to describe this weekend. It was fun. First of all, I feel like I fell more in love with football this weekend. Like, the games were not great. 5 of the 6 were blowouts, let's be honest. We had one really, really great football game and then a lot of blowouts. However, even just watching the kickoff of the Browns at Houston, right? I felt this joy come over me, like, playoff football. It's just different. When you watch playoff football and every single, look, let's be real. When you watch a football game, every little single tiny thing that happens during a game matters. It does. It all adds up to the final score. And all year, you only get 17 games a year. Every snap has a huge significance on the year. But I care more during the playoffs. When I'm watching a playoff game, I'm watching every punt. I'm watching every kickoff. I am so much more engaged because I know the loser goes home. I don't know why that is, but man, I felt just this love of football this weekend, even though, like I said, a lot of the games were blowouts. A lot of the games were, I'm not going to pretend like I didn't really, really enjoy watching the Dallas Cowboys get creamed. That was fun. Sorry, Cowboys fans. I am so sorry for you guys, but it was a joy to watch the Cowboys get not only beat, but embarrassed. We'll talk about all of it in just a minute. Before we do anything, though, we have to talk about today's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks allows you to make an entry based on player projections, and in 60 seconds, you could enter something like Joe Flacco throwing for more than 100 yards, Amari Cooper having more than 100 yards receiving, and maybe Brock Purdy throwing more than 2 interceptions. If your picks are right, you can win money. Making picks makes watching games more engaging, and you could turn something like $5 into $50. Prize Picks offers quick and easy deposits. You can even use Apple Pay, and they have weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts. For example, there's a weekly event called Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. So put your skills to the test. Put your skills to the test in daily fantasy. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. All right, let's pretend I didn't stumble over the words there. It has been a long day. Your boy Zach goes to work. I work all day. I'm in the trades. I'm using a hammer. I'm using a wrench. Actually, I never use a hammer. I use a drill all day and a wrench and wire strippers, and they're not as fun as they sound. Your boy is a normal dude. Look at me. I'm a normal man. I go to work. I come home. I talk about football on the side. It's very fun. I'm enjoying life. I got a great partner. Life is good. Partner meaning my work partner. We ride around together in a truck all day. Not meaning life partner. Your boy is still very much a single Pringle. Let's jump in. Before we do anything else, we have to talk about what happened in Houston. The Houston Texans beat the Cleveland Browns 45-14 on Saturday, I guess. I watched that Saturday, the early game. And there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, the Browns' magical run came to an end. It was really fun. I really enjoyed this Cleveland Browns team. Watching them down the stretch, despite being injured, despite not having their quarterback, despite basically everything going wrong this year. Remember, the year started with Nick Chubb tearing his ACL. It was such a fun year for the Browns. Like, I am not a Browns fan at all. I rooted for them briefly during the Baker Mayfield era. Then they did Baker Mayfield dirty. They brought in the scumbag quarterback. Like, it's hard to not dislike the Cleveland Browns. However, I admit, the Joe Flacco version of the Browns, led by him, pulling his best kind of Kurt Warner, coming off the couch, winning a couple games in a row. It was a really fun journey. It ended in Houston. It ended really ugly. Joe Flacco, I guess he threw over a ton of yards, 307 yards, was 34 for 46 passing. However, he had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, and they were ugly. 2 pick sixes, in fact. I remember watching them live going like, wow, this is crazy. So, first of all, let's acknowledge the Joe Flacco fun storyline came to a really, really ugly end. I don't know what to make of that. I don't think Joe Flacco has a job next year in the NFL. I think Joe Flacco is a fun story and is going to go right back to retirement. I genuinely believe that. He played great, but you can't end it the way you did, and he's also old, and there's not a lot of openings in the quarterback job market. I just don't know that there's a place in the league for Joe Flacco, unfortunately, because I think he can play, but you look around the NFL and nobody needs a 40-year-old quarterback. Yeah, everyone's trying to find the new young guy. There's a wealth of really young, talented quarterbacks available in the draft. And, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Justin Fields? Is he available? We don't know. I'm still really begging for Justin Fields to get traded to Atlanta. That would be amazing. But I just don't know that there's a world where anyone needs Joe Flacco next year. And that's sad. So let's just acknowledge, kind of have a moment of silence right now. Okay, that was kind of boring. Probably bad radio. But let's acknowledge Joe Flacco was a fun story. It was awesome. It was really cool. I think it's over, and probably over for good. But I was hoping we would get to see Joe Flacco win a Super Bowl with Cleveland. How insane would that have been? It's sad that'll never happen. It's a missed opportunity, right? To watch, Joe Flacco winning a Super Bowl as the backup quarterback instead of Deshaun Watson. That would have been awesome. Let's acknowledge, though, going into next year, the Cleveland Browns are absolutely loaded. If they can stay healthy, they're a Super Bowl contender for sure, in my opinion. And we really got to ask, I think we're getting a FaceTime call. Do we answer it? Let's just answer it. I got to go. I'm recording, but I love you. And I will talk to you soon. Goodbye. I will, yeah. All right, let's now switch my my sound off on my laptop so that can't happen again. That's life, man. People call me. I'm a normal person. I'm trying to get through my life. If you have to say you're a normal person, you're probably not a normal person. But I want to be. I want to be a normal person so bad. I want to be a responsible, kind, suburban man. That is my goal. We're trying to do that, and we'll see if we can make it happen. Anyway, the Joe Flacco storyline's over. That's sad. It happened. We have to talk about here. First of all, Browns in Houston probably had the top 2 candidates for Coach of the Year coaching against each other: Kevin Stefanski and DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans, head coach in Houston. Kevin Stefanski, the head coach in Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski overcame a ton of injuries and found a way to make a playoff game, go 11-6, despite, I don't think I can even go through the list and properly acknowledge everybody that got hurt on this Cleveland Browns roster. Their left tackle, their right tackle, their backup right tackle, their running back, their quarterback. Player after player after player went down in Cleveland, and they still went 11-6. I think that's a masterful coaching job. Kevin Stefanski will probably not win Coach of the Year, but he should be considered. Him, Sean McVay, Mike Tomlin should be in that conversation. However, the Coach of the Year has to be DeMeco Ryans, the coach who went into Houston and went 10-6, won the division, and won a playoff game. It's unbelievable. So first of all, let's acknowledge the incredible job that went on in Houston. DeMeco Ryans completely turning around the Houston Texans franchise. Last year, the Houston Texans were 3-13-1. This year, they went 10-7. They won 10 games. They hosted a playoff game. They won their division, and they won a playoff game. It is unreal. Now, let's talk about the NFL MVP for a minute. I do not know how in the world you can look at what happened in Houston this year. You can look at where they were last year. Last year, 3-13-1, no quarterback. Houston was a disaster. This year, suddenly, Houston wins a playoff game. They win their division, and their quarterback, CJ Stroud, in my opinion, absolutely should be considered for the NFL MVP. I know that's why. He's a rookie. What? Why can't a rookie win? Who's more deserving? Dak Prescott? Lamar Jackson, sure, but he had the best defense in football, a great running game. I love Lamar. I really love Lamar Jackson. Lamar already won an MVP, and I'm not convinced he's the most valuable player in the NFL. How do you define value? How can you possibly look at Houston without CJ Stroud and then Houston with CJ Stroud and not acknowledge how incredibly valuable he was to the Houston Texans organization? It is unbelievable what went down this year in Houston. And like I said, he's the MVP. Like straight up, I don't know how you can look at it any other way. In fact, the times he didn't play, they barely beat Tennessee in overtime with Case Keenum, and then they got embarrassed in Cleveland. The 2 games CJ Stroud did not play. CJ Stroud doesn't get a concussion at some point this year against Tennessee early in the game. They're not a 10-win team. They're probably 11-6 instead of 10-7. They probably really easily win their division. Houston does. And it comes down to how you define valuable. I don't know where Houston would be without CJ Stroud. And I look around at the throws he made, the way he played this year. CJ Stroud is amongst the best in the NFL. It's unbelievable the stuff he's done for a rookie quarterback. By the way, can we appreciate CJ Stroud? A guy who was awful on the Wonderlic, a guy who got made fun of a ton in the draft process. Look at how bad his little trivia IQ test went. I want to Google something. CJ Stroud storage unit. I read a rumor that CJ Stroud, I want to be very clear. At one point, CJ Stroud and his 3 siblings, brothers Isaiah, Asmar, and sister Ciara, along with her mother, lived in a small apartment above a storage unit in Rancho Cucamonga. So basically, I was told he lived in a storage facility. That's not quite right. He lived in an apartment above it. But his dad's incarcerated. Dude had a tough journey, man. And I don't know how you don't look at CJ Stroud and just, love him. Like, what a story. What a guy. The maturity of CJ Stroud is unbelievable. I really can't get over how much I would like to be his friend. I mean, I really get the sense like that's the guy you hand the keys to a Lamborghini to. It'll come back without a scratch. He is responsible. He's smart. He's a good leader. I have nothing but positive stuff to say about CJ Stroud, and I just think it's so cool that he did what he did. He just went into a playoff game against the Cleveland Browns. He was 16 for 21 passing at 274 yards, 3 touchdown passes, wins the game 45-14. By the way, beats the team that traded for their former quarterback, Deshaun Watson, in embarrassing fashion. I love it, man. I think I walked away from Wildcard weekend feeling like, you know what? If CJ Stroud wins the NFL MVP, I think it's not only deserving, but I totally agree. And because it goes back to, what were they without him? What are they now with him? Who else goes to Houston and goes 10-7 and wins a playoff game other than CJ Stroud? Look, this is an insane thought, but does Patrick Mahomes go 10-7 in Houston? Maybe. Are we sure? Lamar Jackson? Christian McCaffrey doesn't go 10-7 as the running back. Like, I guess this is why the problem with the NFL MVP is that quarterbacks are always going to be more valuable than a running back. I love Christian McCaffrey. I am actually, I don't know if I'm the only person saying this, but I feel very comfortable saying CJ Stroud is my NFL MVP. And I don't really care what anyone else thinks. That's just my opinion, and it's honest. Let's move on. Kansas City beat Miami 26-7. Remember, a lot of the games this weekend were blowouts and not very exciting. I was disappointed by what happened in Kansas City. I felt kind of bad for Miami. Remember, you go from Miami, Florida, where it's 70 degrees, it's sunny, it's beautiful. I mean, it rains a lot this time of year, but to go from Miami, Florida to -7 in Kansas City, where I believe it felt like -30 because of wind chill, that's a tough spot. Like, I have empathy for Miami going to Kansas City, trying to play a football game. Like, you watch on TV, like, why isn't he making that tackle? But it's like, well, you wouldn't want to, like, exist outside in -7 degrees, let alone try to play a football game. So I don't have any shade against Miami. I will say, though, what did I guess the common theme at the end of the year, every time I talked about Miami down the stretch, I talked about how I am afraid the Miami Dolphins are going to be a really fun team that probably never wins a Super Bowl with the group they have. Whether that's Tua, Mike McDaniel, the head coach, my favorite head coach in the NFL, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. This reinforced that opinion. I think that there's a ceiling where Miami is going to always be fun. They're always exciting. But the reality is they beat one team with a winning record all year. They won 11 games somehow. Only one of those wins was against a team with a winning record. That's horrifying. That, to me, makes me wonder, hey, when they play a tougher schedule next year, is Miami going to take another step backward? Is Miami maybe worse than they really appear? They didn't win their division down the stretch. They didn't really show up very well in a playoff game. The fun moment of this game, Tyreek Hill had a sick touchdown where he got, pass interference. He gets the jersey grabbed. I didn't think he was even going to catch the ball. He not only catches the ball after being interfered with, he then runs for a touchdown afterward. It was awesome. The play was great. That was a highlight of the game for me. I'm like, Tyreek Hill touchdown. Woo, it's fun. But that was the only touchdown of the day for Miami. And, no points in the second half. I thought Kansas City's defense looked really, really good. In fact, the matchup I can't wait. Next week, we get to watch Kansas City host, or guess, I'm not sure. Who's the higher seed? I think actually, is the game in Buffalo? Game in Buffalo or Kansas City next week? I think the game's in Buffalo next week because Buffalo was the number 2 seed. So next week, we're going to watch Kansas City at Buffalo in the divisional round. Remember last time Kansas City played Buffalo in the divisional round of the playoffs? It went to overtime and Josh Allen didn't get a possession and they lost. I think we're in for a really good treat next week in Buffalo between Buffalo and Kansas City. But I'm disappointed. I thought Miami might be able to challenge them a little bit. The Tyreek Hill return wasn't very fun. And I walked away with this kind of feeling of like, nah, you know what? I love Miami. Tua is awesome. And I've seen Tua getting hate. Like after the game, Tua, he's so nice. He's respectful. He asked for a jersey swap with Patrick Mahomes. I'm like, I think anyone who looks at Tua and his reaction to losing a playoff game and thinks he doesn't care or he's soft or he doesn't have any fight in him, I think you're misunderstanding who Tua is as a person. Tua is a guy who, by all accounts, is the most empathetic, kind, gentle human you could imagine. Doesn't mean he can't fight. Doesn't mean he doesn't want to win. It means he lost and he's sad. And instead of being, angry, destroying a trash can, raging his emotions and just spreading them all over the field, he walked around after the game and was classy and respectful to his opponents who just beat him. And I don't know how you hate on Tua. I don't know how you look at Tua and how he acted after the game, which was nothing but classy and respectful, shaking people's hands, giving people hugs, being really kind to Kansas City. I don't know how those are qualities that we don't value at all. It's very weird to me that I saw Tua getting tons and tons of hate, and I was like, what? Wow, we live in a weird world that I do not understand. But, just like I said, the takeaway here is that I am more skeptical than ever that Miami can ever win a Super Bowl with their current configuration as a team, and that makes me very, very sad. Green Bay beat Dallas, and the Green Bay Packers went to Dallas, Arlington, Texas, technically, where they have their stadium, AT&T Stadium, and the Green Bay Packers beat the Dallas Cowboys 48-32, and it was honestly worse than the score would even tell you, because the final score, at the end, Green Bay got a couple touchdowns in garbage time to make it look closer than it really was. This was a complete dominating performance by the Green Bay Packers. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is that the Dallas Cowboys totally fell off the rails. It's so sad what happened. By the way, I want to take you all the way back to August. Do you remember when I did my preseason predictions for the Dallas Cowboys? And I got flamed. I got so much hate for my opinion on the Dallas Cowboys. I told the world, I said, look, nothing against Dallas. I like Dak Prescott. I believe the limiting factor for the Dallas Cowboys is Mike McCarthy, their head coach, and their quarterback, Dak Prescott. What happened in their playoff game? A playoff game where they were down 27-7 at halftime, and their quarterback, Dak Prescott, had, good numbers theoretically. He was 41 for 60 passing. I don't know why Dak Prescott's throwing the ball 60 times, but that's what you got to do when you're losing 27-0 before halftime. Had 403 yards, 3 touchdown passes. However, he had 2 interceptions. And Dak was ugly. The mistakes were all over the place. They looked badly coached. I don't know how you don't look at Dallas. In fact, I was kind of hoping, today's Tuesday, January 16th. This will come out Wednesday, January 17th. At time of recording, Mike McCarthy is still currently the head coach in Dallas. I don't expect that to stay the status quo for very long. I expect that will change probably by the end of the week. I'm surprised Mike McCarthy still has a job at time of recording Tuesday night. I think if I am Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, I'm getting on it right now saying, look, we got a good squad. We got enough talent to win. We need a better coach. And by not firing our coach now and waiting even a couple days, we could miss out on Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh, a great coach out there. Now, I don't know that Jerry Jones wants to give up enough control to even hire a coach like Bill Belichick. But can you imagine Bill Belichick as a head coach on a team that has, oh my goodness, Dexter Lawrence, Micah Parsons, Osa Odigizua. Like, it would be unbelievable watching Bill Belichick coach that defensive line and that front seven. I want that so badly. I really do. And I don't know that Jerry Jones would tolerate that. I don't know that would work out very well. But that's where my brain goes. And so we got a lot to unpack here. First of all, it's hilarious the Dallas Cowboys not only lost, but got embarrassed in their playoff game. And they lost to the team that fired their head coach before, Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy, of all the teams to lose to, him losing to the Green Bay Packers is just weird and hilarious. I feel bad. My friend, he actually, if you listen to the full episode, my friend just called me on FaceTime. That's my friend Sean. He's a massive Cowboys fan. He was FaceTiming me on Sunday during the game. Like, I'm really sad. And I felt bad for him, but I really was enjoying watching the Dallas Cowboys lose their football game. And a silver lining here, because the Dallas Cowboys lost, it means that the Detroit Lions get to host another playoff game in Detroit. Remember a couple weeks ago when I thought there was a bogus, we'll say unfair, crappy ending to a game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions? All is right in the world. The Cowboys are out of the playoffs, and so even though they didn't win that game and it hurt them in the playoff seeding, we still get to see the Detroit Lions host their second playoff game of the year. That is going to be awesome. Cannot wait. I also think as we look at the NFC next week, right, the Packers go on the road to the 49ers. I can't imagine two more, like, I don't know what the right word is here. I wouldn't say passionate fan bases, but there's certainly a lot of passion there. But historic, old, like, these are long-standing franchises with great tradition. The Green Bay Packers and San Francisco 49ers. To have them play in a playoff game against each other is awesome. Oh, by the way, we haven't even talked about Tampa. Tampa's going to play a playoff game in Detroit. 2 former number 1 overall picks on different teams that did not draft them, Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield. It's awesome, man. And, how many quarterbacks have gone on to win playoff games for multiple teams? Both Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff have done that. I think it's very cool. So let's talk about that. First of all, we haven't even, I feel like, finished wrapping up talking about the Packers Cowboys. So let's acknowledge Jordan Love for a second here first. I have been getting so many messages and comments, and people have been sending me old videos I've made. I try to never be the guy who toots my own horn and is braggadocious, but I remember when Jordan Love was coming out of Utah State, and I felt really strongly like he is a really, really talented quarterback that if he can go somewhere and sit for a little bit, could become like a high-level franchise quarterback. And watching Jordan Love go to Dallas, and by the way, have weirdly similar, like almost, I think, 2 yards shy of what CJ Stroud had, 16 for 21 passing, 272 yards instead of, what did CJ Stroud have, 274 but also 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jordan Love went to Dallas against a really good defense and tore it up. He was awesome. Aaron Jones, by the way, deserves credit. 21 carries, 118 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Unbelievable day. I can't believe the Dallas Cowboys got dominated up front the way they got. But let's just acknowledge, as I've gotten messages all week, man, about Jordan Love, and people are like, dude, remember your film analysis video from like 3 years ago? I'm not going to say I knew, like, I've had bad predictions, good predictions. My prediction here on Jordan Love is right. But it makes me happy to see the guy do well. And I remember more than looking 3 years ago now is you're just kind of shooting that arc and hoping you're right. And I ended up being right about Jordan Love. I said he was going to be awesome and a franchise quarterback, and I think he's turned into exactly that. But what I'm more proud of as I look back on my old takes about Jordan Love is not the one 3 years ago saying he'd be good, and then he got drafted to the Packers, and I was really happy for them. And my buddy Tom Grassi was like, why did we draft Jordan Love? And I was like, because he's your next guy. He's awesome. And I was excited for Jordan Love. The thing I'm really proud of is early on in the year in 2023, September, August, and October, Jordan Love had kind of a slow start to the year. And I said, look, be patient. He's a new starter. He's got really, really young receivers. His receiving core was like the youngest in the NFL. So be patient, give it time. Let's see where he's at by the end of the year. And I refused to have an early, quick opinion on Jordan Love. I said, look, just take your time, be patient. Let's give him time to grow and develop. This is why you have to take your time when you're developing an opinion. It is so important to not be in a hurry. Everyone in September was like, Jordan Love sucks. He's a failure. He's a bust. And now look where we're at. He won a playoff game. He got the Green Bay Packers to a playoff game. He lit it up. He was awesome. And today, Tuesday, January 16th, everyone will tell you Jordan Love is amazing. He's a franchise quarterback. But let's remember, in September, people were not saying that. People were really, really hard on Jordan Love early in the year. And I stayed strong. I said, look, just be patient. Let's not be in a hurry and a rush to have an opinion here. And look, when you're patient with a young person who's learning something and growing and evolving every day, look what can happen. I'm just really happy for Jordan Love, man. I really love seeing the guy do well. Seems like a lovely person. I saw a picture of him the other day helping someone get out of a snowdrift. Like, that's kind of cool. He's just a nice, awesome dude who, by the way, can throw the football at an incredible level. Did you watch some of the throws he made? If you haven't, go watch the highlights of the Packers-Cowboys playoff game. My goodness, it was awesome. And I am so happy to see Jordan Love do well. And this is why when next year comes around and there's a young quarterback who's never been a starter before, when everyone wants to give up on him in the middle of September, maybe the first week of October, take a deep breath, relax. It's fine. It's all good. Let the young kid grow and develop. And when you do that, when you're patient with a young man, sometimes they turn into Jordan Love, who just won a playoff game and was outstanding in Dallas. All right. Now let's talk about Tampa and Philly and what the heck happened in their playoff game. So the Philadelphia Eagles got on a plane. They flew to Tampa. It was warm. It was nice. Everyone's in short sleeve shirts. Like the only game basically it wasn't super cold and snowy. And Philly gets dominated. 32-9. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat Philly. And no points in the second half for the Eagles. It was an embarrassing, sad, awful game. And it was a season where the Eagles, my goodness, they started the year 10-1. They finished 11-6. They lost 6 of their last 7 games. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their last 7 games, Philly lost. They fell off a cliff. It's wild. I don't know what to make of it. And what's really crazy to me, Nick Sirianni is a head coach in Philly. Last year, he took the Eagles to a Super Bowl, right? They lost. It was sad, but Nick Sirianni could do no wrong in Philly. He loses Shane Steichen, his offensive coordinator, loses Jonathan Gannon, his defensive coordinator, has to replace a ton of people on his coaching staff. And this year, it wasn't the same Eagles team, man. And I don't know how to say this properly. I just am kind of shocked at I don't want to say lack of loyalty. I know Philly is a tough, rough town to be a professional sports team, right? Like the criticism and the love Philly's going to give you is wild. They're going to one day love you, next day hate you. That could not be more embodied by what happened to Nick Sirianni. Oh my goodness. I keep seeing now people calling for his job, fire him. I want Bill Belichick in Philly. It's like, dude, less than a year ago, he got you to a Super Bowl and you loved him. Not even 12 months ago. Nick Sirianni was like a god in Philly. And now, literally less than 12 months later, goes to the Super Bowl in February 2023. January 2024, people want Nick Sirianni fired. A coach who, by the way, went to a playoff game, won 11 games this year. It's a brutal, brutal sports town. I think Philly needs to make changes. Probably need a new offensive coordinator. Definitely. But after 1 year of, by the way, again, an 11-6 season, I know the year ended horribly. You lost 6 of your final 7 games. That can't happen. Let's all acknowledge that. But really, after one, not even a bad year, a year with an ugly ending, people want to fire Nick Sirianni. It's wild to me. And if they do fire Nick Sirianni, I would imagine he's going to get picked up by another team pretty quickly, right? I think of Tennessee with Will Levis. I think of Atlanta and the weapons they have. Like, man, if Nick Sirianni does get fired, he's going to land on his feet and be totally fine. Imagine Nick Sirianni coaching in, I don't know, Seattle. It'd be awesome. They got a lot of young talent there. It'd be really cool. I just, if you want to part ways with Nick Sirianni, go ahead. Roll the dice at your risk if you don't believe he can make it work. And you know what? I'd be all for watching Bill Belichick coach in Philly. I've heard a lot of people have commented that to me. Fine, fair enough. But man, I can't believe how brutal that is. Like a year, not even a year ago, you were in a Super Bowl with this head coach. You loved him. He could walk. He could do no wrong. He's walking on water. And now you lose a playoff game. You lose 6 of your final 7 games. Bam. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Nick Sirianni is a bum and he's garbage. And that is pretty wild to me. Buffalo beat Pittsburgh in their playoff game 31-17. We all saw this coming. Did anyone believe that Pittsburgh was going to knock off Buffalo? No one believed that. It was pretty ugly. I mean, the game, it was, my goodness, 24 to, I guess it was close-ish in the second half. I for some reason, so it was 21-0 at one point. The game felt over there. Let's give credit. Pittsburgh did bounce back. I guess for some reason in my head, I remember it being 31-0, but that's just totally wrong. I'm looking now. I'm like, no, there was never. I guess 21-0 is what I'm remembering in my head. I thought 31-0. I'm totally wrong here, but I just, okay, the year is over. I thought the fact that Pittsburgh even got to a playoff game deserved respect. Changes need to be made in Pittsburgh for sure. They got to figure out the quarterback position. They got to get an offensive coordinator. A lot of little things have to change in Pittsburgh, but I think when you look at the year Pittsburgh had, going 10-7, making a playoff game, despite firing their offensive coordinator, despite benching their quarterback, you win 3 games at the end with Mason Rudolph. It was a weird, ugly year for Pittsburgh, and they salvaged it and finished 10-7. I think actually ended up being kind of a masterful coaching performance by Mike Tomlin, the head coach in Pittsburgh. Yeah, they lost a playoff game. I got no grief for Pittsburgh at all. I really have nothing but positive things to say about them, actually. I think they pulled off a surprising run at the end of their year. And TJ Watt did not play, wasn't healthy against Buffalo. You can only imagine if TJ Watt was healthy, what could have maybe happened. Maybe Pittsburgh could have upset Buffalo, but they didn't. And I'm glad they didn't, frankly. I don't want to watch more of the Pittsburgh Steelers in this playoff run. We saw Josh Allen have 4 touchdowns in this football game, threw 3, ran for 1. And now we get to watch Josh Allen hosting Patrick Mahomes in a divisional playoff round. Awesome. Like, that makes me really happy. If Pittsburgh had found a way to win this game, I would have had to watch Pittsburgh with Mason Rudolph play another playoff game. I don't want to do that. And so, I don't know. Tip of the cap to Pittsburgh. I'm shocked they got where they did, and good for them. I've got no grief. I'm really glad Buffalo won, and I wasn't surprised at all that happened. Now, the game of the weekend, right? The number one game. The game we were all looking forward to. 5 of the 6 games were decided by 2 scores or more, usually more, right? It was a lot of blowouts this past weekend. But one game, the number 1 game, the game I was most looking forward to, delivered on a level that I cannot be more grateful for. All I wanted since, like, I don't know, when did we realize, like, 2 months ago, November, I realized, hey, we might get a playoff game where Matthew Stafford goes to Detroit. And I hoped it would be awesome. I hoped it would be close. I hoped it would be fun. And I hoped Detroit would win. And everything I wanted to happen did, in fact, happen. The Detroit Lions beat the LA Rams 24-23 in a playoff game in Detroit. Detroit won their first playoff game in 32 years. The week after, their local college team won the national title. What an amazing, amazing week to be a football fan in the state of Michigan. Congratulations to you. You beat your former quarterback. Jared Goff is a story, man. Like, Matthew Stafford could never win a playoff game in Detroit. Played there for 12 years. Nothing but respect for Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff went to the Rams and got to a Super Bowl. He lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots. He got replaced by Matthew Stafford. They swapped quarterbacks. We saw Matthew Stafford do what Jared Goff could not do. Jared Goff could not win a Super Bowl with the Rams, so Matthew Stafford made it happen, and he won a Super Bowl with the Rams. But also, Jared Goff has now pulled off what Matthew Stafford could never do in Detroit, which is almost something I think is way more meaningful. Winning a Super Bowl with a loaded Rams team is one thing, right? Sure, great, congratulations, you win a Super Bowl. You're always going to live in the record books. It's an amazing achievement to win a Super Bowl, and you'll never look back. I mean, it's just an incredible thing. But how many quarterbacks have actually turned around the Detroit Lions? Matthew Stafford tried for years and years and years, never could. Jared Goff won the division in Detroit, won a playoff game, and beat the guy who took his job in LA. It's amazing. I know Jared Goff says, he said publicly, like, it's not about me, it's not about us, or it's not about me, or I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but it was basically like, hey, it's not about me. It's about us as a team and what we're achieving. I'm going to say it. Bullshit. No. I love Jared Goff. He's so humble. He's amazing. I really like the guy. I have for years. I go back and listen to old episodes. I've talked about his charities. Jared Goff seems like an amazing human. I would love to hear what he said behind closed doors about this game. We'll never know. He's too classy. He'll never tell you. This one had to mean a lot. To beat the team that replaced him. To beat the team that discarded him. And not only to beat the Rams, but to win a game for Detroit. It's amazing. And like I said, I think the more impressive achievement, Matthew Stafford winning a Super Bowl or Jared Goff winning a playoff game with the Detroit Lions, what's more impressive? Everyone thought Matthew Stafford was going to win a Super Bowl with the Rams. When Matthew Stafford got traded to the Rams, everyone went, whoa, are you ready? What's about to happen is going to be amazing. We're going to see Matthew Stafford win a Super Bowl with the Rams. Everyone thought that was going to happen. It was the preconceived notion. When Jared Goff went to the Lions, everyone went, ugh, I don't know what to make of that. Is Jared Goff any good? He got replaced. No one wanted him. The Lions are awful. How is this going to work? They got a coach talking about biting off kneecaps. They got Jared Goff. I don't think this is going to work. And Jared Goff made it work, man. Jared Goff, they go 12-5. They win the NFC North. They win a playoff game. They beat Matthew Stafford and the Rams to do it. It's incredible, man. It's really cool. I'm really, really happy for the Lions and Jared Goff, their fan base. Next week, they get to host another playoff game. Baker Mayfield comes to town with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh, it's amazing, man. This playoff wildcard weekend had so many good storylines. CJ Stroud winning his first playoff game. So awesome. Jordan Love destroying the Dallas Cowboys, winning a playoff game, planting the flag, saying, I'm the franchise quarterback, stop doubting me. Baker Mayfield was, God, discarded by the Cleveland Browns. He wins the Cleveland Browns a playoff game. How do they thank him? He plays through a shoulder injury. They replace him with scum of the earth Deshaun Watson. So then he goes to Carolina. Doesn't really work there. He gets benched, loses his job, gets cut, goes to LA, plays 5 games there, has a lot of fun, has a lot of swagger, does good enough to get an opportunity to maybe become the starting quarterback in Tampa, goes to Tampa, wins the job, wins the division, wins a playoff game, beats the Philadelphia Eagles in a playoff game. It's amazing. The Baker Mayfield storyline has been so fun. Now we get a storyline. We get Patrick Mahomes against Josh Allen round 2 in the divisional round. We get to watch Brock Purdy, Lamar Jackson. There is so much good stuff going on in the playoffs. I cannot wait. It's going to be amazing. I still don't love having, a Monday night game. We had 2 this week because the Bills game got bounced back because of a ton of snow. I mean, I don't know what you do there, but in the divisional round, Saturday, we get to watch Houston at Baltimore. That's going to be really fun. Then we get to watch Green Bay at the 49ers. That's going to be awesome. I think the 49ers beat Green Bay probably comfortably, but I think Jordan Love's already done enough to feel good about his entire season. The Ravens probably destroy Houston. Nothing but respect. I just think the Ravens are incredible. I think the Ravens are probably going to win a Super Bowl. I think the Super Bowl, in fact, is going to be the 49ers against the Ravens. So we're probably watching the 2 teams that will play in the Super Bowl on Saturday. Then on Sunday, 2 former number 1 overall picks play each other at noon Pacific time, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Tampa at Detroit. That's going to be incredible and exciting and fun, and I cannot wait. And then Sunday Night Football. Probably the best game next weekend. Kansas City at Buffalo. The rematch from a couple years ago. And it's going to be, remember last time, Kansas City ended up on top. What's going to happen in the rematch between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes? I have no idea. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be cold and interesting. Now, that's kind of my thoughts on the NFL playoffs so far. We had Wildcard weekend. It was fun. It was interesting. But a lot of other stuff happened during the week in the NFL. First of all, let's acknowledge Cameron Ward. Cameron Ward is a quarterback who was in college, who entered the transfer portal. Remember, Cameron Ward is this really, really talented young quarterback who played at Washington State. I went to Washington State. Probably know about him because of that, because I'm a little closer to Washington State than other college football programs. I watched a lot of Cameron Ward. He's incredible. Cameron Ward has Heisman Trophy potential. He can run, he can throw, he can make Mahomes-type plays where he's turns a 3rd and 21 into a touchdown. You're like, how did that happen? He made a guy miss, he ran around, he extended a play, made a giant throw downfield, and you're like, only like 4 people alive can make that throw. Cameron Ward is really, 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 really talented. Cameron Ward wanted NIL money. Said, I'm going to leave Washington State, see what's out there. Visited Florida State, visited Ohio State, and I think didn't get the money he wanted. He wanted to go to Ohio State. They wouldn't offer him a lot of money. Same with Florida State. I think they kind of fumbled the bag letting him walk, in my opinion. And then Cameron Ward did something interesting. He said, I'm declaring for the NFL draft. However, I'm telling the world I'm going to go to the NFL draft, but I'm not hiring an agent. I have until the 15th to really decide if I'm going to do the NFL draft route. And what I said was, he's bluffing. He is calling the bluff on all of the programs that have been recruiting him in the transfer portal. Saying, if you don't want me, I can go to the NFL. I don't need you. He was negotiating. We have now learned where Cameron Ward is going. The number 1 quarterback available in the transfer portal is Cameron Ward. He is going to play for Mario Cristobal at Miami. I don't love it. I really don't love it. I wanted to see him at Ohio State. I was really excited to see him at Ohio State. If not Ohio State, then Florida State. He didn't go to either program. He went to Miami, which, look, I think Cameron Ward's going to be in a position to show the world what he can do. He's probably not going to win a national title. I don't know that Miami makes him more or less likely to win a Heisman Trophy. He certainly has the talent to maybe do that. But I'm rooting hard for Cameron Ward. He's going to go to Miami, hopefully do great in the ACC, playing Louisville and Clemson and, NC State and North Carolina. I hope he has a great year. I wish he was playing in the Big Ten or the SEC. It's unfortunate he's not. But he will play Florida State next year. And I'm interested. I'm really interested to see how Cameron Ward does at Miami. But when he declared for the NFL draft, remember what I said last week? I said, I don't think he's going yet. I think he's negotiating. That, in fact, was what was happening. It's true. And so Cameron Ward's going to play for Miami next year in college football. A lot of other stuff happened, though. Stuff that I don't even feel properly... I don't know how to acknowledge these things that have happened, because 3 monumental coaches have moved on from their roles where they were for so long. Bill Belichick is no longer with the New England Patriots. That is crazy. Oh, by the way, Pete Carroll is no longer with the Seattle Seahawks as head coach. That's wild. And on top of everything, Nick Saban retired from coaching at Alabama. Bang, bang. In a matter of like 2 days, 48 hours, we lost 3 major mainstays in the football world. Old dudes who've coached for a long time and won a lot of football games. First of all, Bill Belichick got very quickly replaced by Gerard Mayo. Gerard Mayo, former player for the Patriots who was coaching there, and they loved him. Because I guess there was some clause in the contracts, they don't even need to interview anyone. They can just, it's a succession clause where Gerard Mayo is not the head coach of the Patriots. Like, basically, the Patriots didn't have a coach for like 7 minutes. It was like, oh, Belichick is out. Now Gerard Mayo's in. Now, there's so much I want to say. I feel like, there's so much to be said about Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll and Nick Saban. How do you properly cover any of this? Let's go one at a time. I think my favorite memory of Bill Belichick is, actually, I have a lot. First of all, I got to watch Bill Belichick coach live and in person about this time last year in Vegas at the Shrine Bowl. It was Bill Belichick and Bill O'Brien coaching Dorian Thompson-Robinson at the Shrine Bowl. I was 10 feet away from them. It was surreal. It was really cool to get to see him coaching live and in person. I love Belichick, man. I think that he is a guy who I worry that his style of coaching maybe isn't conducive to today's NFL. More rigid, really tough, not necessarily the warmest guy, the most caring guy. I think he does care. I think if you really talk to Belichick, he's an awesome dude, but he's pretty gruff. He's got a rough exterior. But he won 6 Super Bowls. He's incredible. And a lot of what went wrong in New England appears to be that him and the owner got farther and farther apart, Robert Kraft, the owner. And Belichick told Robert Kraft, hey, Tom Brady can't play anymore. We got to get rid of him. And then Tom Brady went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl. I think that really hurt the relationship between Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick. I think trust was broken there because Bill was wrong about Tom Brady. Bill Belichick believed Tom Brady couldn't play anymore, wanted to move on. He did move on, and Brady won without Belichick. I think it made Belichick look bad in the eyes of the owner, Robert Kraft. Trust was broken. And when trust is broken, it's really hard to get it back. As painful as that is, as awful as it is, it's hard to get that back. And as the years went on, they lost. Things didn't work. They draft Mac Jones. They did okay, but then they lost, Mike, what is the guy's name? The coach who was in the Raiders organization. Not Mike McDaniels, Josh McDaniels. See, I hate how they all have the same names. It's so confusing. Josh McDaniels, Mike McDaniel. Josh McDaniels leaves to go to the Raiders. They bring in Bill O'Brien. It doesn't work at all. It was time for Belichick to leave the Patriots. The relationship was fractured. They weren't winning without him. And here's what I want to see. We saw Belichick and Brady, coach and quarterback, win 6 Super Bowls together. Then Brady went off on his own and won a Super Bowl without Tom Brady. So for a long time, the whole narrative was, well, Tom always needed Belichick and Belichick always needed Brady. But then you saw Tom go off on his own and win a Super Bowl, and people went, oh, maybe the reason why Belichick won all the Super Bowls was because of Tom Brady. I think that's a shame. I hate that. I hate that that's how people view that, because I think they're both just great. I think he's like a legendary, incredible coach, and the other is a legendary, incredible quarterback. They both contributed to them winning 6 Super Bowls. I don't think one was more valuable than the other. It wouldn't have worked without both of them. So what I want to see is I would love to see Belichick go somewhere else and win a Super Bowl with another team without Tom Brady. Whether that's going to the Chargers and coaching Justin Herbert, or maybe Atlanta coaching all their young talent there and building them into a superstar franchise. I don't know. Maybe it's Dallas. Can you imagine if Bill Belichick was the coach who won another Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys? How, frankly, I'd be excited. I'd be happily cheering for the Cowboys if Bill Belichick was their coach. But I hate the way Belichick is viewed now. After Brady won a Super Bowl without him, it put a stain on Belichick's reputation, and people now literally believe Belichick wasn't the reason they won 6 Super Bowls together. I think it's more on Brady. I think the only way to set the record straight is to watch. We saw Brady win a Super Bowl without Belichick. Can the coach win a Super Bowl without the quarterback? That's what I want to see. That's what I'm rooting for. So that's we covered Belichick. I love Belichick, man. I want to see him do well. I'm rooting for him. He's an incredible coach, and I'd like to see him win without Tom Brady. It'd be really cool to see him win another Super Bowl. Pete Carroll's out. Pete Carroll, I think was kind of, he was asked to move on. Seattle said, "We love you, Pete. You're awesome. Give us a hug. You're the best coach you've ever had. It's been such a good long time. But it's over. It's time to move on." Right? They've elevated Pete Carroll to a advisor role, basically. It's like in Japan, they give you a window-facing job. In Japan, culturally, they tend to not fire you. They give you a job where you're not asked to do very much, and it's kind of an early retirement. That's what's happening to Pete Carroll. He's being given a window-facing job. Let's Google that. I want to make sure I'm right. I say stuff, and I should be very careful. Window-facing job. Let's see what comes up on the old Google. In Japan, is it still shameful for an office worker to have a window-facing job? Is it good to work? People are, okay. It's a thing in Japan, and I butchered it probably, but do what you want with that information. Basically, the Seahawks told Pete Carroll, "We love you. You're not our coach anymore. We want to move on. We want to move it in a different direction as a franchise, but we don't want to disrespect you. So be an advisor if you want. We want you involved in what we're doing. We love you, Pete, but we gotta move on as an organization." Probably the right thing. I love Pete Carroll. I think they're going to hire Dan Quinn, the head coach, the former head coach in Atlanta, the current defensive coordinator in Dallas, who was once Pete Carroll's defensive coordinator in Seattle. They won a Super Bowl together. Russ, the Legion of Boom, Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator of that team that won a Super Bowl in Seattle. I would not be shocked if Dan Quinn came back to Seattle to become the head coach. It's bittersweet watching Pete Carroll leave. I think my favorite thing about Pete Carroll is the videos of him like playing football, playing catch, throwing the ball. Like there is no other coach I've ever seen at his age have the level of enthusiasm that he has. And you could even argue we've never seen another coach other than maybe Sean McVay have anywhere close to the level of enthusiasm that Pete Carroll had throughout his entire coaching career. Just like an incredible person who seemed like a fun joy to play for. A friend of mine played for the Seattle Seahawks, was around Pete Carroll for a while, loved him. Loved Pete, had nothing but good things to say about him, created a good culture there. Pete Carroll, nothing but respect, won a Super Bowl. I was always disappointed by the way things went at the end. I felt like what went down to Russell Wilson, the lack of offensive linemen. Pete Carroll will always be remembered for throwing the ball on the goal line instead of handing it to Marshawn Lynch, the most painful decision probably ever in the Seahawks fandom. But I think Pete Carroll walks away having left Seattle in a much better place than they were when he got there. And Seattle's won more playoff games with Pete Carroll than without Pete Carroll. And that says a lot. I really like Pete Carroll. I'm sad he's gone. I wonder what he's going to do next. I wonder, does he actually retire? Does he go coach high school football somewhere? Does he go... We have no idea what he's going to do next. And I wonder if Pete Carroll is going to be actually done coaching or maybe go somewhere else and have fun on the sidelines like he has for so long. Maybe he's tired and done. But when you watch Pete Carroll and literally the joy he coaches with, it's hard to imagine that guy ever being done and wanting to truly stop coaching football. So, I don't know, interesting stuff there. And then Nick Saban walked away. Nick Saban retired. I really thought Nick Saban's justification was awesome. He said, look, as I'm recruiting and people are asking me if I'm going to be here in 5 years, I'm not sure if the answer is yes. And so I'm going to walk away while I'm on top. He's like, I don't want to run Alabama into the ground. I don't think he wanted to be Joe Paterno, who, remember Joe Paterno was a coach at a high level for a long time at Penn State. But then he stuck around and he stuck around and he stuck around even more. Then he got old and didn't win as much. And then there was a scandal and his career got, really shamefully ended. Nick didn't want to end in a shameful, awful way. Not that I don't want to compare him to Joe Paterno, but my point is he didn't want to wait till Alabama sucked to leave. He wanted to leave. Alabama was still good and competitive, and he felt like he was doing a good job. And he basically said, I feel like I can't give 100% to this anymore. And that makes sense to me. I think part of what did Nick Saban in at Alabama, part of why he walked away was the transfer portal now is just a whirlwind. I don't know how you coach and recruit. Like, the transfer portal is so weird because the regular season ends. And then a couple teams have a conference title game, the ACC title game, the Big Ten championship, the SEC championship, the Pac-12 championship, whatever. And then if you do well in that, you go on to your bowl game or your playoff game. In Alabama's sake, they played meaningful football games throughout. They beat Georgia in the SEC title game. Then they were preparing for like a month for their bowl game on New Year's Day in the college football playoff. Also during that time, the minute the regular season is over, the transfer portal opens up. So you're trying to prepare for the SEC title game. You're trying to prepare for your college football playoff game. And you're also trying to deal with the whirlwind that is the NIL world and the transfer portal, trying to get players left and right. It's an exhausting... recruiting already is kind of hellish. I wouldn't want to be a college football coach recruiting. It seems really, really tough and really, really difficult. But then imagine you're trying to coach and prepare a team for a playoff game, and if you're not on the ball with recruiting, you're going to lose a lot of guys when it comes to... did anyone see my lights flicker just now? That was wild. Did we lose power? It's snowing like crazy outside. There's a ton of ice. We might lose power tonight, and if that happens, that sucks. But I think that Nick Saban, looked at where the transfer portal is going, looking at NIL recruiting, and said, look, I'm good, man. I've won a lot. This is insanely exhausting. I'm not sure I'm still going to be here in 5 years when I'm recruiting players and telling them to come play for me. I feel like I can't be honest about that. It makes sense why he walked away. I get it. I totally understand. And I think NIL recruiting makes it easier for bad programs to get good players, because if you're really in the college football playoff and competitive, your attention's divided. Whereas a bad school that didn't make the playoff and didn't make their conference title game, their season's totally over, they can invest all of their time and energy into going and getting players with NIL money in the transfer portal. So I think it affected things. And I think the transfer portal's got a lot of things that need to be figured out in college football, because I think it really effectively ruins bowl games. And it makes it more difficult for teams who are in the playoff to recruit while preparing. But also, maybe it leads to more parity in college football, where more middling programs are getting higher level recruits because of the money they can offer. I don't know, man. It's really interesting. It's kind of like NFL free agency, except it unfortunately starts before the year is totally over. So it's very weird, this nebulous world we're in with NIL, transfer portal, recruiting. Thankfully, next year we don't have as many crappy bowl games, because we're going to have a 12-team playoff. So we're going to have a lot of meaningful playoff games in college football rather than crappy bowl games. We're still going to have some bowl games, but I wouldn't mind even having like a 16-team playoff and saying, look, no more bowl games at all. You make it into the postseason or you don't. But let's not have any more crappy, sham, bad bowl games anymore. Yeah. So Nick Saban's out. My favorite Nick Saban moment ever is, I believe it was Bryce Young and Will Anderson? Is that who it is? Is that the really good linebacker in Houston? Whoever it was Bryce Young and someone else. They lose a game to end the year at Alabama. And it's Nick Saban in the middle, his players on his right and left, Bryce Young on his right, left if you're watching, left on the screen, but right from Nick Saban's perspective. Who cares? And they get up to leave, the players do, after the press conference ends. And Nick Saban goes, hold on, wait a minute. And he says, hey, players, can you hang out here? I've got something to say. And then he goes on this beautiful long speech, really praising the players he had, how much he loves them, how proud he is of them, how far they've come. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. Even Nick Saban, the way he talked about the team he had this year. The team Nick Saban had this year had a lot of challenges to overcome. Struggled on offense, had this awful game against South Florida. They didn't know who their quarterback was for a long time, and Jalen Milroe has potential, but never quite became what they hoped he would be. He did the best he could, though. I think you could actually look at what Nick Saban did with this team this year. For them to go upset Georgia in the SEC title game, make a college football playoff game, nearly beat Michigan, who ended up winning the national title. It's one of Nick Saban's best coaching jobs ever. And I think Nick Saban, he's rich, he's powerful, he's won a lot, but he was really classy, man. He treated people really well. He yelled at you, he got on you, he was tough on you. But the moments where Nick Saban showed heart and empathy and care for his players are my favorite moments from him. And I think he's done with college football. I don't think he wants to deal with where recruiting is heading, the NIL world, the transfer portal, all of that stuff. But I do wonder, could we see Nick Saban coach again somewhere? Maybe the place he goes is to work for Bill Belichick in the NFL. I think we're going to see Bill Belichick go from New England either to Atlanta or the Chargers. And I love the idea. I love the idea of Nick Saban, the guy who once coached with Belichick in Cleveland. Belichick was head coach. Nick Saban was defensive coordinator. Could we see Nick Saban return to coaching under Bill Belichick? That would be what if they won a Super Bowl together? How insane would that be? I don't know, man. It's a long shot. It's probably unlikely. I think if I was Nick Saban, I don't know what I would do. If you're that rich and you don't need to do anything ever again, hard to get me to do anything. But I mean, maybe an opportunity to coach for a year or two with Bill Belichick is too good to pass up. Maybe that's too fun of an opportunity. I don't know, man. I'm really interested what will happen with Nick Saban next, but either way, Nick Saban and Bill Belichick are friends. They've worked together for a long time in the past and have kept in touch. They're now both done, at least in the teams they were with, and that's pretty wild. Now, by the way, Alabama did hire a replacement for Nick Saban. Kalen DeBoer, the head coach at Washington, left Washington. He's now the head coach at Alabama. And I don't know what to make of this. Kalen DeBoer never came across to me as a guy who is a high-level recruiter. I don't know what else he would have done. I don't know how he built Washington, but I didn't ever go like, oh, Kalen DeBoer is a great recruiter. I don't know what's going to happen with Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. He left Washington for an opportunity at Alabama. I'm sure making more money. Personally, I don't think I would want to be the coach coaching right after Nick Saban. That seems pretty brutal. It's like going and doing stand-up right after Dave Chappelle kills it. Like Dave Chappelle brings the house down. You don't want to be the guy on stage right after Dave Chappelle. That's awful. You're never going to be what Chappelle was, even if you do a great job. Kalen DeBoer's got expectations like crazy and going to be always compared to Nick Saban, and that just seems unfair, and I wouldn't want that if I were him. But Alabama brought in a coach who has no visible problems off the field, never been in trouble, got to a national title in his second year coaching at Washington. He's amazing. I don't, on paper, it makes sense. I worry about it because I don't know what's going to happen with the comparisons to Saban. I don't know a lot about Kalen DeBoer, but I'm excited to watch Jalen Milroe run his offense. There have been a couple times watching Michael Penix Jr. where they want to watch watching Washington this year. They wanted the quarterback to take off and run, and Michael Penix Jr. simply couldn't quite do what the play was designed to do. He couldn't quite hit the next level and really take off. Jalen Milroe running Kalen DeBoer's offense. What does Jalen Milroe do well? Throws a deep ball really, really well. Against one-on-one coverage, Jalen Milroe, despite all his flaws as a passer, he beats man coverage throwing deep balls regularly. That's what Michael Penix Jr. did a lot as well at Washington. That's interesting. Oh, and the best thing Jalen Milroe can do is run the football. And I think Kalen DeBoer's offense and what he's got going on at Washington translates really well to what Jalen Milroe can do best at Alabama. It's going to be interesting. I wouldn't want to be the coach after Nick Saban. I think it's pretty brutal. I don't know what's going to happen with Kalen DeBoer. I think he got a good opportunity. And frankly, given what he was able to accomplish at Washington, I am interested to see what Kalen DeBoer can do with the budget of Alabama. But we'll see. It's fascinating, and I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with him. So here are the coaching options right now. Here are the coaching openings, in the NFL. Atlanta doesn't have a coach. The Chargers do not have a coach. Seattle doesn't have a coach. The Washington Commanders do not have a coach. We think the Dallas Cowboys might fire Mike McCarthy. The Carolina Panthers have a job opening. Tennessee's got a job opening. The Raiders have a job opening, although I'm hoping they hire Antonio Pierce, the interim head coach. And the Patriots, for like 7 minutes, had a coaching opening, but Gerard Mayo very quickly became the head coach there. I think the Chargers and Atlanta are the two best opportunities in the NFL. One of them is going to get Belichick, and one of them is probably going to get Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh apparently today interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons, which tells me he's gone. Oh, by the way, J.J. McCarthy has declared for the NFL draft. J.J. McCarthy, I don't know what the heck. I don't view J.J. McCarthy as a high-level NFL prospect. I'm surprised that he is entering the NFL. I don't think J.J. McCarthy is a first-round pick. I am not confident he's even a second-round pick. It's very interesting. I don't know what to make of J.J. McCarthy going to the NFL. He didn't exactly carry Michigan to a national title. He kind of was carried by Michigan to a national title. But Michigan is no more. I think Jim Harbaugh's gone. I think J.J. McCarthy's gone. And the things that built the program into what they are fundamentally going to leave. And that's interesting. But I don't know, man. If I'm Harbaugh, I want to coach Justin Herbert. Frankly, like if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm like, look, I need a great quarterback if I'm going to come back to the NFL, and Herbert is exactly that. And if I'm Belichick, I think I'd rather coach Herbert, but I could see Belichick happily going to Atlanta because of the talent they have and the opportunity to build a program there. And then if he gets the right quarterback in Atlanta, the Falcons are really, really interesting. By the way, the Falcons are in a terrible, terrible division. Tampa, Carolina, New Orleans. Like the Atlanta job looks a lot like what the Patriots opportunity looked like a long time ago, when you had Tom Brady and then a terrible Dolphin squad, a terrible Bills team, and a terrible Jets team. If you can make Atlanta good, the rest of that division in the NFC South is really, really bad. All right, guys, let's end the show today with questions from Patreon. If you want to support the show, we go to patreon.com/Zach Schaumler, patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. It's $1 a month. You can donate more if you want to. Please do. It literally does pay my rent, but $1 a month gives you access to submit questions on Patreon. Question number 1 today. I got to drink some water. Question number 1 today. We got a couple. Let's talk about Michael writes in with a question that I don't love, but let's answer it anyway. Michael says, "Hey Zach, how are you feeling about the NFL playoff structure this year? Personally, I think this year would be more exciting with the old 6-team format. The 7 seeds, the Packers and the Steelers, are not going to a Super Bowl. And the 2 seeds, Dallas and Buffalo, could really use the bye week to get healthy. What do you think? Would the NFL playoffs be better with 2 fewer teams? Have a great 2024 to you and all of the other listeners." And he gives a little peace sign. Thanks, man. No, I think 7 teams was great this year. 7 seeds was awesome. You know why? Because one of them won, right? If the Packers get smoked by Dallas, you're probably right. But the fact that the Packers beat the snot out of Dallas 48-32 is pretty exciting and makes me feel like, this argument, the minute you wrote this 6 days ago, the minute the Packers beat the Cowboys, your argument went out the wall and I didn't care anymore. So I love you, Michael. I appreciate you. I like the thoughtfulness behind the question. I like where you're going, but because the Packers won, it makes you're right in, to me, null and void. I don't think having two fewer teams would make it better. And frankly, if Pittsburgh had TJ Watt, I wonder if they would have been able to beat Buffalo because it was close in the second half. They were within a touchdown. Does TJ Watt make all the difference and they beat Buffalo? Possibly. So I don't know. I don't feel any problem at all with having 7 teams in the playoff on each side of the bracket, and makes sense to me. And Jake writes in, "Holy Pete Carroll, Batman." I don't know why Batman's in there, but sure. Says, so at the moment, there are 7 open head coaching jobs with Pete Carroll moving to an advisor position with the possibility of Belichick leaving New England. We might have 8 open head coaching positions, possibly 9 if the Dallas Cowboys move on from Mike McCarthy. Jake says, personally, it feels like these might be some of the best rosters in recent memory to change head coach. The Chargers alone might have some of the best rosters I've ever seen in my lifetime, but just haven't had the coaching to put it together. Seattle's offense is terrifying at basically every, quote, skill position, and their defense has the promise all over the field, especially in the secondary. The Washington Commanders' defense is littered with talent, and the Raiders and Falcons' offenses look so exciting. You get my point. Aside from the Patriots, that if that happens, God, I feel bad for the poor soul who has to make that offense work. Every team that needs a head coach feels like that's almost all they need. It also seems like there are so many more spectacular offensive coordinators than usual. I think they could get a lot of jobs as well. So ultimately, my question is, are there any coordinators and teams do you think could take the league by storm next year? Or even just be super fun to watch? Well, I'd hate to see Ben Johnson leave Detroit. I think it's inevitable. I think he could turn the Falcons into the next Lions. I mean, think about how much fun it would be to see Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson running all over the field in the weird and fun ways that Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta have been doing this year. Yeah, you're right. Ben Johnson is the number one coach other than Harbaugh and Belichick. Belichick is going to go wherever he wants. Same with Jim Harbaugh, most likely. And then after that, it's Ben Johnson. And, you know, I want to see Ben Johnson in Seattle. I think Ben Johnson, him, and then if he hires like Dan Quinn as the defensive coordinator in Seattle, that would be really, really interesting. But Ben Johnson in Atlanta, if you trade for Justin Fields, I mean, man, I think the biggest problem right now in the NFL is that the Bears don't have any idea what they're doing. I don't know how anyone's not talking about this. Chicago, they're keeping Matt Eberflus, their head coach, a defensive head coach, who's not done a great job, in my opinion. They got rid of the offensive coordinator. Chicago is a mess to me. I don't understand what they're doing. But I don't know, man. Who is the most, again, I think I already said it. Belichick and Harbaugh are the most exciting coaches available. I'm really curious, though. I think with 8 or 9 teams with openings at the head coach position, it's going to be a wild offseason to see who gets hired where and what happens and what the heck is, like for Carolina, who is Carolina going to hire? Who wants to go coach in Carolina? Who wants to work with the people in Carolina? I have no idea. There's a lot of questions to be answered this offseason, and we're just getting started. I have no idea. Mike Vrabel is also available, believe it or not. Mike Vrabel got fired, which I think it was more mutually parting ways, but Mike Vrabel's available. And I think Mike Vrabel's a really good coach who could go to a good team and win a lot of games. Like maybe Mike Vrabel goes to Seattle. That's a really interesting, thought-provoking idea. So, I don't know, man. I really... Mike Vrabel's a wild card. He's not really a quarterback's coach, but he's a great coach nonetheless. He gets the best out of his players every week and every year. Where is Mike Vrabel going to go is really the question that I feel like isn't getting asked enough as you look at the NFL. Oh, man. Getting a lot of text messages. Got to put my phone in airplane mode. Justin writes in. Justin says, Zach, Nick Saban retired. I'm shocked. I've seen comments like, respect the hell out of that man, but thank God he's retiring. What are some of your favorite Nick Saban Alabama moments that come to your mind? I already talked about one. It's when, the players were leaving the podium and he held them back and gave kind words to them. Another Nick Saban moment that comes to mind is the reaction to Tua getting sacked in the national title game. They put Tua in. Tua takes a terrible sack. Next play throws a long touchdown to Devontae Smith, but the initial reaction when Tua took that sack, Nick Saban was not happy. And then it worked out in the end, but it's little things like that. The way his players talk about him, everyone loves him. I don't know, I respect Nick Saban. I feel like I already covered this topic, but I wanted to read your question anyway. Will says, hey, Zach, Tennessee shocked the world this week by firing Mike Vrabel. But how appealing is the job to potential replacements? I see some interesting young pieces, but also a bunch of aging veterans and one of the worst offensive lines in recent memory. I have no idea how. The only appealing thing in Tennessee is you got Will Levis, a young quarterback who looks like he can play. I don't know. It's something. It's better than nothing. It's better than having no quarterback and a terrible roster, but Washington's in the mix. Like, Washington has a ton of salary cap space too, and a high draft pick. Like, I think there's a lot of better landing spots than Tennessee, but the one that's really bad is Carolina. Nobody wants to coach in Carolina. I think could not be more clear. Some sucker's going to take the job. Here's a name that maybe should be considered for Carolina. I don't know if they're considering it, but the one thing Carolina has going for them is they got Bryce Young, Bryce Young gets a lot of hate, did a lot of good stuff as a rookie quarterback this year. We'll do a film analysis at some point. I think it's kind of in my cards. What about Eric Bieniemy as a head coach in Carolina? Because he's got nowhere else to go, I don't think. I don't think Carolina is a strong pull that's going to get whoever they want to be their head coach. Like, sure, if they can hire Belichick or Jim Harbaugh, great, but I don't think they can even get in the room with a quality coach like Bill Belichick or Jim Harbaugh because of the way they fired their last two coaches and the way things look really, really awful in Carolina. Carolina's going to have a hard time hiring any kind of head coach. So they got to take a chance on someone that not a lot of people want. I think Eric Bieniemy might be that guy. Eric Bieniemy to Carolina with Bryce Young is a really interesting idea that I'd watch that. I'm interested, but I don't know who else Carolina can get because I think Carolina is really undesirable and no one wants to coach there. Deeply Closeted writes in, I love your username. Deeply Closeted says, hi, Zach. Copying GQ here. What are 10 things you can't live without? Thanks. I don't know if I can get to 10. I can say a couple things I can't live without. Number one, my family. I learned kind of the lesson I learned from Hawaii. I went to Hawaii, lived there for 6 months. I had a lot of heartache, and I learned that people are more valuable than places. And I missed my family. I knew that as I was going through a really tough breakup, I had to be near my family. And I will probably never leave this area again. I've learned how much they mean to me and how much their support means to me. And I'm in my lifetime, I'm never going to not be near them. I need to be near my family. It's everything to me. And I learned a lot in the last 6 months. Deodorant. I need the gel deodorant. I can't have the hard, chappy, sticky stuff. I got to have the stuff that squeezes out and is like a paste. So gel deodorant, my family. What else do I need? I need comfortable clothing. Whatever that looks like, and it changes depending on where you live, but like it's cold. It's 19 degrees outside. We're having a crazy ice storm here in Portland. I wear like literally 6 layers when I go to work. 2 sweatshirts and a jacket and 4 long sleeve shirts. I don't know how many layers that is, but I literally wore that today. 4 long sleeve shirts, 2 sweatshirts on top of each other, then a windbreaker on top and a winter hat. And you know what? Oh, and then leggings with sweatpants and then work pants over the leggings and the sweatpants. 2 pairs of socks. Hey, it's cold as balls outside, but I wasn't cold. So comfortable clothing, like a good clothing setup really matters to me. I can't live without my truck. I love my truck. My truck is everything to me. I really, really love my truck. You know what's messed up here? I'm thinking about the things I can't live without. You think of the people you can't live without. And there was one person who I thought I couldn't live without that I've had to learn how to live without recently. And that's been terrible. But it's true. I can't live without my laptop. I use my laptop for everything. Need my phone. I don't feel like I have any more answers to what you're going to say, but I use my impact drill every day. I love my drill. I got a little DeWalt drill. I use that for everything all the time. Those are some of the things I can't live without. Oh, you know what else? I actually don't have one right in front of me. a composition notebook. I use composition notebooks constantly, although I am trying to get away from taking notes with pen and paper and trying to put them on my laptop because it's just easier to carry it with me and move notes and copy paste and whatever. But I'm using more and more digital notes than ever before, but I'm a note taker. I always will be. Those are some of the things I can't live without. I hope that answers your question. Matthew writes in and says, "Hey, Zach, I wanted your advice for a situation all athletes eventually have to go through. I play baseball and am likely going to be forced to be done with my career after a recent injury. I wanted to ask you what you did to be able to move on to a life without sports. Was it difficult? Love the show. Keep it rolling." Matthew, I don't do a life without sports. I still talk about sports and am a part of sports all the time. I'm not playing them anymore. But my love for sports has shifted to a new way. And that's maybe the trick is you can't play baseball, sure, but can you coach? Can you what ways can you still be involved in the thing you really care about? And then take all the lessons you learned as a player and apply them to your career or your life as an adult. And you can totally do that. And there's lots of things you can do to learn from sports and take those lessons and carry with you as an adult. And that's kind of my general advice. It's hard though. Grieve the loss and say goodbye to baseball, say goodbye to the sport you love. It is hard to lose your sport, but it can be done. You can get through it. The Rams, I don't really want to talk about that. Let's talk about, Gabe writes in, Gabe says, "Hello, back to the Zacture." Is that like back to the Rapture? At the beginning of the year, I was singing the praises of Pete Carroll due to the success of the 2020 year. As the year went on, however, that quickly changed because with a lot of new talent, it did not bring any new success as we ended with the same record. I was shocked that Pete was actually let go, but I'm excited to get a new head coach. Here's my question for you. Because Seattle had such a bad defense, I want a defensive coordinator to be head coach, like a Mike McDonald. But it seems as if the model for success in today's game requires an offensive head coach. Do you think that we could see a shift, however, as some teams decided to hire defensive coordinators to stop these offensive guys as defense wins championships? It seems it always helps to zip while everything else zags. The coach I want to see in Seattle is Dan Quinn. Maybe McDonald, the defensive coordinator in Baltimore. It's another good option, but you got Geno Smith, a veteran quarterback. You don't need an offensive guru to work with Geno Smith. If you had a young quarterback, a rookie quarterback in Seattle, I would not want them to hire a defensive head coach. But because the quarterback situation's got Geno and Drew Lock, two guys who've been in the league for a long time, they don't need to be babysat or handheld. You're actually in a position where Seattle can't afford to hire a defensive head coach. Dan Quinn or Mike McDonald both come to mind, but that defense in Seattle is ready to go, and you need a good coach getting them ready because they're so close. And I think Seattle could have a dominant defense with the right coaching staff brought in. And dude, I think Belichick in Seattle would be wildly interesting. I don't think he wants to do that. I don't think they're in the market for Bill Belichick, but that does grab my attention. Final question of the day comes from Joshua Davis. He says, "Zach, my man, hope you're all good. Long-time listener, first-time questioner from the UK here. Dude, wait, governor, where do you live in the UK? I'm really curious. I got family from Newcastle up by I guess I don't have family anymore. I know some people who live near that, what is it, Hadrian's Wall up in, I guess that would be Scotland. Anyway, enough. The UK is painful for me still. I dated a British girl. She dumped me. It sucked. Jesus. Joshua writes in and says, just wondering if you've seen any of Kurt Benkert's content on YouTube, former Packers quarterback who works with Tom Grossi and does Madden videos. Joshua says, I know you said you love video games, and seeing you play through a Madden season talking through your process as a quarterback would be really interesting. I play offensive line primarily at guard, but now I'm starting to make the move over to center, and playing Madden is actually really helping me develop my understanding of the game we all love. Do you think video games could have a place in a player's development? Anyway, thanks to your eyeballs for reading this and hope everything went well in the move. Love you. No, Madden's huge. Madden teaches you about football a lot. In-game decision-making, coverages, what kind of stuff, what kind of concepts to use to attack certain defenses. Like, Madden's a football simulator. It's clunky, it's got problems, but playing Madden teaches you more about football than a lot of other things will teach you about football. And it's there definitely is some value there. And it's going to be really interesting as my generation grows up and becomes head coaches. I'm 26 years old, and as the head coaches become coaches and people that are my age, it's all going to be people who grew up playing Madden and therefore have the understanding of time management, in-game decision-making that they got from Madden. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Madden plays a role in modern football. But totally, man. Joshua, Madden's super valuable to the process of understanding the game and developing your football mind. And I think that's kind of makes sense. And it's not weird. It makes total sense. And it's actually a smart way to prepare and learn and understand the game. Guys, I love you. Thank you for tuning in. Life's good. I'm really trying to not live too far in the past. When I look back at the past, I get sad. When I look back at the future, I get really anxious and I don't understand. I try to be hopeful, but I'm really actually just a very anxious person. I'm trying to live in the moment and enjoy every day and try to just let life move slowly and let that be okay and enjoy that. And that's my advice for you guys. Do whatever it takes to learn how to live in the moment. If you do the right things every day and you've got a decent enough plan, the future is going to work itself out. You can't change the past. It sucks. It's often painful. But you can't live your life looking back at the past. You got to live in the moment and be grateful for all the little things you have in front of you. Right? Like tonight, I'm living with my best friend's parents in their basement. And these people they're my parents. They've become my family. And we had like family dinner tonight where we made nachos and we watched Shark Tank. It's so simple, like really amazing nachos and a silly TV show with your parents. But like a little moment like that is really, really special if you enjoy it and you appreciate it. So I encourage you, find a way to enjoy those little tiny moments in your life. It's helping me have a better life. And we all go through tough stuff. And I think losing people you love is sometimes the hardest thing you can go through in life. But all we can do is move forward and do the best we can. This last Hawaii, going back, then coming back to the mainland, the last 6 months of my life, by my own doing, it was my fault, were really difficult. And a lot of heartache in that 6-month period. But we'll get through it. We'll do well. Life is good, and all we can do is the best we can with every day. And I just love you guys. I appreciate you for listening. Hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you next week. I cannot wait. I think Kansas City at Buffalo is going to be an incredible game. It's going to be really fun. 49ers probably destroy the Packers. I'd love to see Houston challenge Baltimore. I don't think they can. And there's one other game. Why am I forgetting the other Sunday game? Oh, it's a good one. Baker against Jared Goff. I actually think Tampa against Detroit's a great game. It's going to be really fun. I think the Sunday games are way better than the Saturday games. Have a great weekend. Enjoy football. We will see if, again, Mike McCarthy might be fired by the time this comes out tomorrow morning. I love you. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day. And bam, we are done.